Hi, this is Julian talking to you once again about setting up a business, in this case, a cleaning business. Um, Last time I spoke to you in part one, the very first one on this channel, I was stranded in a hotel room at Newark Airport, I think, in Jersey, New York. That was on a Saturday. I recorded this, but my laptop gave up. Anyway, I'm back now, made it back to the UK on the Sunday morning. Had a good flight. BA rebooked me on United. That got me up to gold status on BA, which was nice. So we can use the first class lounge on the way to Santorini in Greece on Thursday, a little short break. Anyway, this was the last slide in the previous presentation. Why we did this, or why I did this, was we wanted a side hustle. From my perspective, getting sort of towards the retirement age and didn't want to go from a good income to nothing. I wanted to have something to sort of tide me over that I could keep me interested in something. And so that's one of the reasons for doing this and other things. My wife wanted to do her own business. She'd been disillusioned with the NHS and been a nurse and midwife, so quite qualified. I'm sure we'll meet her later. So we formed Cosy Cleaners. Sorry about the typo there, just seen that, which was named after Cosmos, which was my wife's dad, who died quite a few years ago, as did mine, by the way. And we were trying to utilize our sort of prior experience. So that's sort of where we got to last time. So, what we did was we met in a pub. How do we get this thing going, right? We met in the pub. Currently in our village, it's closed. It's one of the challenges of our area. It just doesn't have a lot of that. It's not that dense from a housing perspective. We discussed it. I set up a questionnaire. I'll probably put a link to that in the notes below at some stage. And questions to think about in terms of clearly what was the value proposition. I mean, yeah, sure, cleaning, but what are you trying to do? What services? Who are you trying to offer it at? What's the price? A whole load of things. How are we going to market it, etc. We bought a web domain, cozycleaners.co.uk. Was no problem in getting that on GoDaddy. It wasn't very expensive. I think maybe £5 or £10 per year. And it allowed you to create a sort of placeholder website saying sort of coming soon. So that was sort of exciting. You could go to a web address and there was the GoDaddy one-page website. So that was great. I then built a website, and that was what I was bringing to the table. I thought that was as much as I was going to do. And obviously a website is key for demand generation, lead generation, and a sort of a long-term inbound marketing strategy based around content. So we're ultimately trying to have content on every aspect of the cleaning business. And I've got a list of all the things I want to build. And that's predominantly where the blog comes in, so that we are the authoritative website on cleaning. There's many competitors, of course, and many of them have no websites. Many of them have a page on Facebook, if you're lucky, and some of them have a website. Most of them are rubbish, and we're trying to do a decent website and have lots of content, and that's good from an SEO perspective, as in search engine optimization. So if you do a search in Google, you've got a chance of coming up towards the top of the search engine results. It's a lot. So generally, having lots of good content is good thing to do, and that's one of my strategies to achieve that. So I built the website. We bought some materials, the equipment, a couple of vacuum cleaners, some brushes, mops, whatever it might have been, and a bunch of chemicals. Funny enough about the chemicals, the first or second employee we had, or second staff we had, I should say, then said, "Oh, you can't use this. It's highly dangerous." Well, you read it, and it has low or moderate impact, and that's if you sort of like spray it in somebody's eyes. So we've never had a problem since with that. Though there is a section on the website all about the chemicals we do use, and we started doing some limited advertising. We were quite expansive. We found some magazines, the things that came through the doors. We did some Facebook advertising. We did some Google search and display advertising. We did something on Bark. and obviously we had the website going for it. So we did quite a lot of things. So we also set up a Google business profile, and we used Google local services. So quite a few things. And to be honest, we probably spent too much to start with. So that was sort of pre-launch. The actual launch then was to find some people, and turns out basically what's our best cleaner is a young lady who lives in the village where we are. She's 17. She had no experience, was a little bit of a dropout, if I could put it that way. But I think cleaning really gave her something to focus on, some independence from her family environment, which was very good. There's no suggestion of anything else. And, we love working with her, and hopefully she'll come and join us more time as she finishes her studies. The website that I mentioned, I've used Wix as well and built a number of websites and prototypes in Wix. And we built the website in Wix using its fairly easy to use but fairly sophisticated editor. I think they call it the Wix Studio now. It's been through several iterations. And then by chance, there was a whole bunch of add-ins you can add to Wix, and one of them was the booking system. Of course, we wanted clients to be able to book jobs or certainly book an assessment, and so we used the Wix booking system. And that's actually pretty good. You can set up services, you can set up staff, you can set up online web forms. There's all sorts of things you can do with it. It's actually pretty sophisticated. And in some ways, it's probably more sophisticated than the system we have now that we moved on to. Has all sorts of automations to send out emails and things like that. That forced us to define our services: a standard clean, a bi-weekly clean, a deep clean, well, all the different things you can have. And I say the booking and the scheduling, because the view was this was to be a highly automated business. Sure, if you're doing a lifestyle business, you can drop it down in a diary on your phone, whatever, it's not a problem. But if you're trying to schedule multiple people with multiple jobs, you clearly need some software to help you with that. So then we actually started getting clients. Funnily enough, they rang up, they emailed, and even a couple came through the website and booked an assessment. We do a visit assessment is the basic process. So the first client was a complete disaster. She wasn't happy with anything that was being done. It's always very hard afterwards if you're not there to know what's being said. Yes, you can do pictures, and this lady sent us a bunch of pictures, but dust is hard to photograph, or a cobweb, or whatever it may be. My client and my wife ended up probably in an unadvisable argument, but we ended up getting paid, but we didn't have a repeat customer. Not that she necessarily would have done, and frankly, she probably was crazy. A general trend, I think, is that it's very easy to find that your clients are crazy, but I think that actually comes down really to the quality of the staff, and getting staff that are good enough to deal in a domestic environment is really, really hard. Therefore, you're going to end up with a lot of issues and potentially unhappy clients. Second client was a disaster. My wife took an ex-colleague of hers from the nursing profession along who was going to do it. She was never going to be a long-term, but was good at filling a gap early on in theory, knew how to clean. Obviously, everybody does, don't they? And she went in there, dropped her off, introduced her to an old guy. We go home, and half an hour later is the call that she's been thrown out. I mean, I won't go into the details, but this was sort of typical. Like 2 out of 3 deals, the third job was a deep clean, and that went fine. Other than the guy went expected the next way and complained about the cobwebs. Well, and given my wife was there, I'm pretty sure that wasn't the case. And of course, if you leave a house for a day, it's going to be full of cobwebs potentially. Spiders don't die. Anyway, so it is a problem. But then the other thing was, apart from the teenager I mentioned, we had a new member of staff who was very reliable and blah, 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 but ended up sort of smoking on the job and didn't take any criticism or advice or follow any process. Would start in a room and start by hoovering. I mean, I'm no expert on cleaning, but you just don't do that. So it was a pretty baptism of fire, I would say, and I think having expectations at that level is probably a good thing. I mean, even the conversations with the clients to sign them up was never so much of the problem. And obviously now my wife, having done, I don't know, 50 of those, is very good at it. And she's very good at taking people through the process, setting expectations, but, the clients never listen to it. So the key thing is that if you're trying to go beyond a lifestyle business, is that there's a few key processes that you need to have in place. I think I've hinted at already, and the summary of the last 6 months, or the net, however you want to say it, is that good people is the key. But if you're in the minimum wage economy, without trying to be rude, almost by definition, you're not dealing with good people. So that's a very difficult circle to square, whatever the expression might be. But it's a key process and a key issue. Second one is finding clients. We haven't found that any problem, partly because we've got very good marketing, good websites at the heart of it. And there's always advertising that you can turn on. We've found, we'll talk about this in more detail in the next session, but we found paper advertising in local village magazines the most effective for us. You need to manage the operations. It's the booking of the clients so they can book, scheduling, and communicating with both the clients and the staff, and that's something I'll come back to later. You need to manage the finances. I mean, I don't know how you manage as a sole trader, but we use an accounting system that came free with our NatWest bank account. It's called Free Agent. It's perfectly adequate software to certainly to get you going. I think it even does payroll, though we've, to be honest, actually never used the payroll to date, and I'll come back to that later. But you need an accounting system to tell you where you are, what sort of the revenue for this month or this week even, what are the costs and how much you're spending on the different categories. And on, after a few weeks or months of results, you can start to see some really useful insights from like the profit and loss report, where we're really spending our money, where could we do to try and cut back or invest, etc. And the final thing, of course, is we had equipment, which we bought predominantly off Amazon. We set up an Amazon business account with a bunch of chemicals. We set up uniforms, which is simply a T-shirt with a branding on it and an apron. So we had to source those, and some business cards, I should have said, and some flyers. But these are really, and the top two, finding the people, and finding the clients are really the top two things. And what we're going to do in the next session is do a deep dive into those processes. Anyway, I'm going to stop here. Really, the second introduction to this business, and I hope that was very useful.